Okay, so one thing we're going to do is get ready to move our web service to Azure. Azure, as you know, is Microsoft's cloud computing solution. And in order to do that, we're going to need to do some cleanup on our code. So I'm going to walk through a few things that we need to fix for that. So we'll open up our project. The very first thing we need to do when we added our help files, we didn't add the actual file into the project, and this will cause us a problem when we go to Azure. So all we need to do is right click on app data here. That's where our simple XML or our simple REST server XML file is, which is our custom help information. And I'm going to select existing item here and simply pick that file. That'll add it so that when we deploy to Azure, that file gets put up there like it's supposed to. So that's one thing we need to do. The other thing we need to do is some cleanup on our persistence. So if we look at this class, what we started with is creating the connection in the constructor and basically allowing the object to go out of scope and the garbage collector to take care of cleaning this up. This is a pretty bad practice because it can get us in a situation where we open up a bunch of connections and don't actually release them. So we're going to fix that by just doing a little rearranging on the code here. So we are going to get rid of the constructor altogether, and I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, so if you'll just follow along. Here's the constructor of our class right here, and we have this private data member for the connection. So we are going to take this private data member and we're going to copy this into each one of our routines where we're actually using the database. And it's just going to go at the beginning, and it doesn't need to be declared private, obviously, because it's just a local variable now. So we're going to go through and do that. You'll see the underlines showing us that we have an error. That's okay. We'll come back and fix all of that. So I'm going to go into each one of these. So the idea is that on each one of these calls, we'll go to the database, open a connection, get the data we need or execute the command that we need, and then close the connection. We want to be able to do this because that will allow us the most efficient use of the connection. You can't really hold the connection open between different requests because of the asynchronous and stateless nature of web services and REST in particular. So we are going to have let's go back up here. So we're going to have to take all of this code and move it. So what we are going to do is I'm going to do a little code optimization here. It's not a big deal, but I'm going to make this all just be declared and initialized all in the same line. And then we need this connection string, which we know we're going to need. And there's a better way to do this. We could set a constant for this. Just in the interest of time, though, I'm going to go through and just create this. And we're going to put this right underneath each one of the places that we had the connection. Oops. Right there. And right there. And one more right there. Okay. And so now we have the connection string, and now the next thing we need to do is get a new instance of the connection. Before we can do that, though, all of these have to be encapsulated into try-catch blocks. So we are going to have getting the new instance of the connection right after each one of these again. So just a lot of copy and paste going on here. It certainly would have helped if we would have done this to start with. We got in a hurry to get REST working, and it's always good to think about your code and refactoring as you go. And that's really important to make sure that you're not creating more problems for yourself as you go. Then we're going to need everything in a try-catch. So I am going to copy, and this is going to cause some formatting issues, but we will fix those. So right after every one of those, we're going to put a try, and I will be coming back and fixing all of these, so never fear, we will get rid of all of our red underlines. And there, and more here. We want this entire catch, including that closing brace, like this. And we're going to do different things with this. First of all, this was bad coding anyway because we weren't doing anything with that exception. That's a real problem. So what we are going to do now is put that right after the return, and that's going to cause some other errors that we'll need to fix. And on the next one, let's see, before we do that, we want to add a finally. So as you know, we have try, catch, and finally. And finally says no matter what else happens, make sure you execute this statement. And this is the statement we wanted to fix, which is closing the connection. So now we're going to copy this. So after our returns, and we're going to have some more fixes that we need to make. Right after that return, right after the next one here, and one more right there. Now, our code's kind of a mess at this point. We've got curly braces all over the place, so you can fix that by going into the Edit menu and under Advanced and select Format Document, and it will go through and clean everything up for you. There's a hotkey combination to do that as well. Now we can get rid of our constructor. Now we need to go through each one of these routines and make sure that we are actually going to return the right thing. So on get persons is supposed to bring back an array of people. And if we got an exception in any of this code, what we want to have happen here is we want it to return, in this case, we want it to throw out the same exception. So that'll allow it to be caught at an upper level exception handler. And we will do that again down here. Throw EX, which is the exception that we got, or caught. And with the delete, same thing. And with the final one here, going to add this other one in as well, throw EX, okay? All right, so you might ask, well, what happens if the connection itself fails? Well, that's going to throw an exception and just come right on out anyway. But if it gets in here, then we've got a good connection and we can go ahead and close the connection. We could add some additional code around that close to check to see that it is, in fact, a valid connection first, but this will get our code structured in the way that it needs to be. Now there's one more thing that we need to do, and that is we need to open the connection. So right here, we're going to say connection string is equal to my connection string. and then we are going to go ahead and open the connection. So this code also will need to be inside of the try on each one of these. So sorry, I'm jumping around a little here, but here's the get the individual persons, and here's get all of the people. And scrolling down, we already did the delete. So we're looking for the post or the create, update, which is put, and then the post, which is the save here. So we'll put that in. Let's make sure we got that in the right place here. Yeah, we didn't get that in the right place. That's what I thought. So we'll move this down where it goes. All right. So that's all of that code. Now, one other thing we need to do in our controller. So let's look at this routine right here. Specifically this one right here. What happens if they ask for a person that doesn't exist? That's the question here. And the challenge we have here is we're already returning a person object. So what we'd like to be able to do is return a status code saying not found, but we're not returning a status code, we're returning a person. Well, Web API has a way around that, and it goes like this. We simply put an if statement in here because this will return null if the person isn't found. So we say if person is null, then what we want to do is this. We want to do throw new HTTP response exception, new HTTP response message, giving it HTTP status code not found. So what will happen now is that if it isn't found, it'll throw this exception. And what that really will do is it won't end up being an exception with the client. It'll end up being a not found status code or a 404. Okay? So that's what will happen. So let's go ahead and run this and make sure we haven't broke it and get our client up here to try it out and make sure everything still works. So we have a build error. Okay, so when we save a person, oops, we need to throw EX. Let's try that again. So I missed one of those. Okay, here we go. Let's bring our apps up here, DHC. Postman's another one that people use. Pause, another one I've heard about recently. You might want to check out. Okay, so we're just waiting for the server to fire everything up, get it all compiled. So let's start with just a get on person. And it pulls back all of our people. So that worked. It got the connection, and then it closed it, which is the most important thing that we were trying to do. And now if we give it a number, it gets those. And we can run through the post and update, or the post and put and delete, but I'm not going to do that. You can test those out. But let's look at this. Let's look at what happens if we give it an invalid ID. We should get a 404, which we do. 404 not found. It doesn't return anything back. So that exception that tripped out the status response code for us worked just fine, and that's exactly what we want to be able to do. So hopefully this helps. This is everything we need to do to get ready now to move to Azure, which we'll be doing in subsequent videos. So hopefully this helps you get the code cleaned up and ready to go so that we can move on to Azure.